Paul's the CEO and the owner of Courtney Agencies. He took over the family business formally about 5 or 6 years ago. He's got more than 30 years of experience in this industry. He actually started in high school. He left the industry for a few years to attend university and train as a chef. And he eventually came back and has been actively involved full-time for more than 30 years. I think we could even say more than 35 years. So I think what I want to say is customs brokerage is really Paul's life's work. He cares about it deeply. In addition to running Courtney Agencies and having a whole host of professional designations himself, he's been really, really active in the industry, in the professional associations, including the Canadian Society of Customs Brokers and the Canadian International Freight Forwarders Association. He's served on their boards for many years. He's presently on the CIFA board as a member of the executive committee. And one of the benefits to our customers of Paul's involvement in the professional associations is he really gets to keep his ear to the ground on how, what developments are happening in the industry and specifically what's developing with customs. So I believe Paul even chairs the customs committee of CIFA. So I can assure you that Paul, the information he shares with you, it comes from real experience. He's close to these conversations. I will say that Paul has lived through a number of major changes in customs procedures and shepherd our clients through that process. And CARM is a bit of a big one, but Courtney Agencies will guide you through this. And yeah, so over to you, Paul Courtney, and thank you.
Thanks a lot, Virginia, for the very unbiased introduction. I very much appreciate that. I think the first thing I want to do is I want to introduce Arzu, and I think many of you have had the pleasure to work with Arzu, and whether it was through payments or arranging customs bonds and things such as that. She is our leader of our finance team, and she's leading the CARM project as well, and she'll keep me honest and make sure I get things right and fill in where I need to be filled in. So Arzu's been with us for 9 years. Been with Courtney for 9 years. Before that, she lived in Turkey, and her background is in banking. So certainly her life's work has been around finance, but of course she spent the last 9 years learning our business and learning customs and freight and all that stuff. Somebody, I can hear somebody. Oh yeah, I guess if anybody's unmuted, probably a good idea to mute. But yeah, that's Arzu. So Arzu, say hi.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining.
Oh, there she is. Awesome. And of course, Virginia had introduced Patsy and Robin, our communications team. So we'll keep this moving along. I think most everyone on the webinar has some familiarity with our company. For those that don't know, we remain a family-owned and operated business. My father started it in 1955. We are, in essence, a custom brokerage and international freight forwarding firm, and a lot of services fall under that umbrella. And in these days of supply chain challenges, to be honest, CARM doesn't seem so bad. So hard, I guess. You'll notice in my background, there is a ship, and you'll notice that ship, the containers are not on fire. And so I don't know if everybody has that reference, but there is a ship off the coast of Vancouver right now that I understand the fire is under control, but they're still wrestling with it a bit, and hopefully nobody on this webinar has cargo on that ship. But it is amazing as how much the supply chain is in the news these days. And all of a sudden, what I do is, or what we do is a little bit more sexy, I think. I don't know. Maybe we should have a poll question on that. Robin? No? Okay. So we got to get moving along. So I sort of talked a little bit about this. So let's get right into what we're here for, right? We're here to talk about CARM. And so just a rough outline here. Of course, we'll talk. We'll give you a little intro. What to prepare for before you register. Some steps to go through on the registration process. Some glitches and things that you'll run into. Some workarounds, and really some resources on to get you through this. And lastly, how we can help you. So what is CARM? So Canada Customs, like a lot of government agencies, love their acronyms. And I find this one is a little bit even more difficult to remember, to be honest. So first of all, for those that don't know, CBSA is Canada Border Services Agency. And so the full acronym stands for CBSA Assessment and Revenue Management. So CARM is an online portal that all importers will need to register for before May 2022. And it enables you to monitor your import transactions and your duty and tax payments to CBSA. There's a few things here, and this slide is really, this came from Customs, and I've crossed the Canadian part out because all importers will have to register. So not just Canadian-based importers, but all importers. And the thing I wanted to stress here, this portal certainly gives everybody more transparency into the process. But it also provides more transparency to Customs as well. So I think that we do expect, as this gets rolled out, to see more enforcement activity. So just to make note of that, because I think that for those of you in the US, Canada Customs is pretty lax, to be frank, and we don't see near as much enforcement as I think as in the US experience. So I kind of wanted to compare a little bit to the US situation, and just to kind of outline really the enormity of the task over the next year. And I know there's a couple people on this webinar that know the US situation inside and out. And so I apologize in advance if I make any mistakes here. But really what I wanted to illustrate was, I think CBSA looked at the US environment when they went about designing the future of Canada Customs. And as Canada Customs seems to do, they look at what's going on in the US, but then they kind of go on their own way anyway. And so there's some big differences. So ACE in the US is my understanding, is a similar portal online, similar to CARM, but then after that, the similarities are considerably different. One of the differences I understand is in the US, it's a voluntary, and it's been around for a long time. And so I think the slide illustrates that, there's the percentage of importers that have registered, versus in Canada, where Canada Customs expects every importer to register within a year. And so that's a big difference. That's a big challenge. The other big difference is financial security. In the US, most importers post financial security directly, working with their broker, but it's the importer that holds the bond. So most importers have their own security. In Canada, it's much different. Very few importers have their own financial security. So between now and May 2022, essentially 230,000 importers will have to figure out what they're going to do and how they're going to post their financial security. So this slide really just presents that, that there is two stages to this process. And we're in release 1 now. Release 1 opened up in May. And I think the last time I saw, the number of importers registered was a very small percentage. So we got a long way to go. Release 2, May 2022, is not far away. And that's when every importer will have to be registered. Every importer will have to determine their financial security. And again, it's going to be a big process. There was a letter that went to the president of CBSA over the last couple of weeks, a couple letters actually, from pretty much every association in Canada that represents importers, that basically said, this is not going to happen. If you go ahead with the May 2022 date, there will be disaster. It will be a big problem. So having said that, we do need to kind of plan ahead and carry on and go forward. So from an individual importer perspective, I guess what I got to say is don't panic. There is time, but I think that we're recommending that most importers at least register, before Christmas, and then maybe look at the financial security piece, after the holidays. That's kind of the timeline that I think is probably a good thing, good way to look at it. The other thing I would add is the release process doesn't change. Okay, so what we do for our customers, the front end part of the process remains the same. Okay, however, we can't continue to do what we do without our clients registering. So they have to register, and then they have to, the other big part of the process that I'll talk about is the delegation process. And I think we're ready to go to the next slide. Oh, we have another poll. Robin, do your magic.
Should be able to see it. Looks like everyone might be in. So I'm going to end the poll and share the results.
Okay. That's good news. Good news. I think, I think for some importers, they will be able to wait till the spring. It's really the financial security piece that might take some time. So just be aware of that. Because essentially, an importer if they don't post financial security, what that means is that payment will have to be provided prior to release. So if you're a occasional importer, maybe that's doable, but for most, I think that would be that is a difficult. Okay, so the registration process. So there's a few important things here, and I think maybe what I'll do, I'll talk a little bit about the business account manager. So whoever registers your business becomes the business account manager. And that business account manager has full visibility on the status of your account, but also allows you to pay pay the duties and taxes when due, and has full capabilities in the portal. We also recommend that if you appoint a second business account manager, just in case the first one even allows someone to go on holidays or what have you, but just as best practices. Now, before you go in and register, you really have to kind of compile some information. One of the things that you have to be careful with is your actual corporate legal name and address. So if your company is limited, but it's registered as LTD, you have to make sure that you enter LTD versus limited. So as an example, the other thing, just to go back a little bit, is that every individual that is going to be part of your portal has to get a GC key. And I'll show that a little bit in the next slide. The harder part, I guess, is really some of the questions that are asked. So they ask about your statement of account, and basically you have to answer 2 out of 3 questions. And so this is kind of where it's worked really well, where we've done one-on-ones with our clients. We do a video meeting and share, the importer will share their screen and we'll walk them through. And then we'll have this data at our fingertips. So we can say, okay, well, when you go through the process, it'll give you a transaction number, an import, an example of an import transaction. And you'll have to say, well, how much was the duties and taxes? So it'll select one at random. And then what we can do, we just key it in, right? And it just shows the amount. So again, I think, the walkthrough process has worked very well with our customers. I think there's also a bunch of questions when you get your GC key, like, what was the name of your first pet and things like that. So be prepared for that kind of stuff. So this is just the page around getting the GC key. There's 2 options: sign-in partner through your financial institution or GC key. Haven't really tried the sign-in partner. Don't know how well that works. We just kind of recommend people use the GC key as a more recognized standard. I won't go through this slide in details. By the way, the slides will be made available to everybody after. I think this is a good sort of walkthrough, but a lot of fine print that we won't go through today. Okay, so this is how this is the home page, and I guess this slide is just meant to show you what it looks like. And there's some other tools there, but really it's that's the window to log in. When you go to register your business, I think I had mentioned about knowing the legal entity. And I think you need to make sure you got the address right too, Arzu, right?
That is correct. Even if there's a small mistake, let's say postal code or the way how you write instead of road, if you do RD, it will stop you. It will give you a warning there's a mistake, but it won't tell you the exact mistake. So in that case, what we do on one-on-one meeting, I check with the CRA before the meeting if everything is correct. So I have in my hand the correct information.
Great. Awesome. So this slide just gives you a sense of the the trajectory. If you're a new importer, obviously you have to have a business number and import account before you go in and register. In the future, I understand importers will be able to obtain their business number and their import account through the portal as well. So this just illustrates about creating the GC key, linking your user account with the business account, granting access to employees and representatives, which we'll talk a little bit more about. And then essentially you have use of the portal. So what does it look like once you get in there? So here's a sense. As you can see, it shows your debits and your credits. One nice thing about it is that you're able to see your credits. Right now, we often don't see at end of month, we see a client's debits, what they owe. But we don't necessarily see any credit. So if there's been a refund claim paid out. So what often happens is sometimes credits remain unused. So this gives more visibility on all that. So talk a little bit about the delegation process. So when registering, the delegation process is part of the mix. And so the delegation can be to employees, but also to service providers. And I think I might have mentioned this, without we can't continue to do what we do unless when you register, you also delegate to us as your customs broker. Of course, that's, even though you might do this tomorrow, it doesn't affect the process until the release 2. But if it's not done by release 2, that's when the problems occur. Let's see, what else can I add to that? I think that is, keep moving. So talk a little bit about payments. So under CARM, after release 2, customs will only accept payments electronically. So importers can pay through the portal, or they can also pay online with their bank if their bank is online with CBSA. So most Canadian banks are, but most US banks are not. There are a couple of US banks that are. Of note, JP Morgan, I think, comes to mind. I think there's a couple more. There's also an ability to pay by credit card on the portal, or set up pre-authorized debits. Now I guess it does present some challenges for non-resident importers. So of course, payments have to be in Canadian dollars. As mentioned, very few non-Canadian banks are set up for online payment. So that probably doesn't change what we do now with our non-resident importers, and where we provide solutions for them to enable payment. So this is the big one, the posting security. So there's really 2, perhaps 3 choices. One is posting a bond. The other is posting cash security, or not posting security at all. And I reference that. Without posting security, then it means that your shipments don't get released until payment is made. Now, I think most of our customers will post a bond. However, currently the bond minimum is $25,000, and most importers don't need that much. Might be $5,000, $10,000, but the minimum is 25. That could change, but it may not. You know, on the other hand, a $10,000 bond costs probably the same as a $25,000 bond from a yearly premium perspective. So I guess what I would add to that is the surety companies since March 2020 have really been, how do I say this? I mean, it used to be easy to get a bond, let's put it that way, for most businesses. Now the surety companies have really tightened things, and they're requesting financial financial statements and such. So again, that adds to the time as well, and to keep that in mind. If it's May 2022, that process of getting the financial security, getting the bond, has to be sort of factored in, right? One of the things that we're working on is a financial security tool. And I believe we've been working with our surety, and I think how it's going to work is that, I mean, we'll let everybody know before this happens, but essentially an email will get sent out to the person in contact, and with a link to enable them to go to the surety site to be able to fill in the blanks, to be able to apply for a bond. So more on that later, but it's coming. The other thing to keep in mind with the posting a bond is that right now it's a paper-based process, and it's painful. So paper flies around, has to be original, has to be wet ink, signatures. You know, if it's not completed exactly, it gets rejected by CBSA. So that's the other thing to sort of keep in mind for the time frame. Once release 2 comes, it's apparently there's going to be an electronic process. In the US, I think they've had an electronic process for a while. But that's the additional sort of frustrating thing here, is that, hey, you got to post security before release 2, yet they're not providing an electronic process till after release 2. So that just adds to the challenge. The formula will change as well. So for Canadian importers now that post financial security, they only do it for duty. After release 2, it will be for duty and GST. So, but the formula is different. So the amounts, the calculation is a little complicated, to be honest. But you know, you look at your highest monthly duty and tax, and then you cut it in half, and that calculation is the same for resident and non-resident importers. So there's a few sort of funny things about the portal. One of them is when you first log in, it often takes you to the wrong place. Not a good start, right? You know, it's like, oh man, it's not even taking me to the right site. And I'll show you the page in a moment where it takes you. And then what you have to do is just back and go back in. And I find that the second time it always takes you to the right place, but for whatever reason. When you register, you also have the option to get email notifications for events that happen on the site. And those notifications, I understand, are not working very well at the moment. So it's pretty ad hoc when you get a notification or not. Importers that have zero duty and tax. We represent quite a few American food manufacturers, and a lot of them don't pay duty and don't pay tax. And so the system, when registering, doesn't allow zeros. So that means you have to go in, you have to contact the help desk at CBSA, and I guess they do a back-end registration. But on the positive side, those importers don't have to post financial security. The other thing we found is that in release 1, after an importer has registered, you know, I mean, you get a new tool, you want to use it, right? So, you know, we have, so some importers we pay on their behalf. And so we've run into a situation where we pay and they pay, and then duplicate payments and things like that. So just to kind of be aware of that. So I'm certain that for all of you that register, you will see this page at some point. When you go log in, it'll take you to this page and you go, what the heck is this? And so when you see this, just go back. Don't go further on this. Get out of here and go back in again. I'll take you to the right place. So couple other things that are going to change. The first thing is a big deal, the commercial accounting declaration. So right now we submit data customs on our importer's behalf. The document is called a B3. It's all electronic now, but it's still called a B3. When we request a refund, it is a paper process and it's called a B2. In release 2, it's going to be the CAD, and the data elements are going to be a little different. We haven't seen the final details, the final participants document to, and I know a lot of the IT service providers are panicking a little bit on that as well. What else can I? Yeah, and you know, you can submit the CAD through the portal, but most transactions will be done EDI like they are now. Let's see, is there any other things I can add on this? I think I've talked about, oh, I know one other thing, the payment of the duty and tax. The timelines will change, and I think to the better, in that right now what happens is that statements are issued on the 25th of every month, and you have 5 business days or less, or no, sorry, you have till the last business day of the month to pay. So it can be challenging. In the future, there'll be about 10 days. And I think it's the 17th to the end of the month or something like that, right? Or is something, but it's changing. I think it'll change to the better. So that's a positive. See, I'm not all negative on this. There are some good stuff. Some good stuff. So I talked about transparency. The other good thing about the process is the adjustment process. So right now, if we, God forbid, make a mistake, it's kind of an ugly process to fix it. You know, it's paper-based. It takes a long time. It's not great. Where under CARM, it will be an electronic process, so that every time we make an adjustment, what'll happen is that CAD that we submitted, it'll go to different versions. So if we adjust it, it'll be version 2, you could go version 3 or what have you, but it's done electronically and it's fairly immediate. The last thing would be in regards to customs rulings. And so I know in the US it's been electronic process for a while. In Canada, not so much. So the electronic rulings are available now in release 1. And I think, I mean, that's great. And I think importers should apply for more rulings and you know, certainly allows a lot more certainty on your processes and your duties and all that sort of stuff. So how are we doing, Robin? Is this about am I doing okay for time? We're good?
You have about 10 more minutes.
Oh, okay. So, but we want questions and stuff like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
Okay, great. Okay. So again, some, you know, CBSA has, I would say they've bent over backwards to help importers and you know, there's the help email address, there's what they call the help desk and all that sort of stuff. Lots of documentation out there. I think too much, and it's pretty overwhelming, but they're trying to, but of course they've enlisted our, custom brokers to educate the community too. And we're of course doing our best on that. And then just, how we can help. And I've talked a little bit about that. And I truly think that, these one-on-ones we've booked with our clients are really useful. And I can say, and this is not a negative, that the importers that we've worked with, they could not have done it without us. I'm not just tooting my own horn here. It's just stuff we do every day, stuff we have at our fingertips, and so I would certainly encourage, reaching out to us, whether it's by email, or even if you want to call me, that's great, or call our zoo. But I think the walking through process has been very successful. However, keep in mind, we're, again, not just tooting my horn here, but we have a lot of clients. There's going to be a lot of meetings. So, earlier the better for sure. Yeah, and I think we're coming up to time. Arzu, was there anything maybe you wanted to add, or? Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry, I couldn't. Yeah. Oh, actually, you cover everything. Only I was thinking about the after you post the bond, you might need to increase the bond amount later on, depending on your imports. Before, like in current process, the customs only review once a year, end of July, but it will change after the second release.
Yeah, and I guess I guess it's a positive that under CARM, the bond level, the bond amount posted will be continually monitored, right? And if you approach your limit, you'll get messages and things. I don't know if that's good or not, but you will. First of all, thanks everyone again for attending. It's great to get you guys your participation, and we look forward to working with you to get through this process. And again, I'm not holding my breath, but if date changes, of course, that'll be a big deal, and we'll let you guys know. But again, I don't think we have to kind of carry on, move forward. And, yeah. So Robin, what did we want to do for questions? Do you have anything in the chat box, or?
You have a couple of options. The first one is to unmute yourself and just ask the question audibly. Or if you'd rather, you can just pop it into the chat, type it into the chat. And if we don't get a chance to answer it today, we'll reply with an answer when we leave the meeting.
Do we have anything in the chat box?
Not yet.
So on the next slide, and I'll show you in a second, there'll be our contact information. And so again, definitely feel free to reach out to us, and we'll be very eager to help for sure. Oh, one more thing I would say. Interesting, I had an email overnight from a customer that said, we import, it's regularly, but it's not very often, right? So, maybe they import once a month or something like that. And, he said, oh, I see your guys' communications on CARM, but I just figured you guys would kind of just look after it. And, and that's been the tradition, right? That's what we've done. We just kind of looked after things. And obviously, a broker importer relationship, really a two-way is good, is better, right? It's important the importer understands what we do for them. But I did say to them that there is an option where we can actually register the business, but then we become the business account manager. And So a bigger responsibility, something that we'll kind of look at case by case basis, probably more, more appropriate for a smaller, less regular importer, but that is an option that we'll fully vet. And I think from our side too, we kind of have to look at how many too, the numbers, right? Because that means fully managing the account. Okay. Nothing, Rob? Okay.
Nothing there.
Okay. That's
Covered
all right.
everything.
I guess I did a really good job.
Paul, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, Paul, hi. David Bartel here.
Oh, hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you doing?
Good.
I just wanted to ask you, if you're a small importer, which we basically are, and we've been importing for years, over a decade,
Yep.
Typically importing from Asia and using DHL, would we still, now you know that our needs are changing, but if our needs were not changing and we were continuing to import by air using DHL, would we still need to register with CARM?
Yes. Yeah. So that kind of brings up a good point too, because, and I missed this point in that when you register and you go to delegate third-party delegation, you will see some invites, and you should see our invite, but you'll probably see DHL's invite as well. And so yes, the short answer is yes, you still got to register. Even if you did it once a year, it's a little bit crazy in that way because, especially we get a lot of inquiries overseas and it's kind of last minute stuff and importers wanting to import like yesterday. And this kind of adds complexity and adds another layer to the process. But short answer is yes.
So any company, no matter how big or small, no matter how infrequent or frequent you're importing, whether it's by ocean or by air, has to register.
Yes. And I guess I would think maybe there's the exceptions might be is if a service provider is using their business number instead of yours. And that could be. It's not really a great practice, but it happens. So there might be the odd exception. So if DHL was using their importer number instead of yours, then and you didn't import otherwise, but even in that kind of situation, you don't know, you'd have to do some digging, but it's probably good to register anyway. You still,
right.
At a minimum, you get some visibility on what's going on.
Right. So there's absolutely nothing to lose in registering. In fact, it's probably, a good idea.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, everyone. Well, again, thanks. Thanks for making the time today. As mentioned, we'll circulate the presentation later. It'll be also available online. And if there's anyone that knows anyone that couldn't make it or missed it, it sounds like we're going to do it again in November. But I think part of the process too is we'll have obviously we have our CARM communications, but also I think we'll be doing a little bit more direct outreach, phone calls and things like that as things get closer. Okay. Did I miss anything? Robin, Arzu, are we good?
So there'll be a quick survey that goes out afterwards, just a customer satisfaction kind of survey, three questions.
Great. Okay. Thanks again, everyone, and everybody have a great day.